Let's talk about Bruce Lee. I've previously described Bruce Lee as a bright star, and while that is certainly true in terms of how quickly his star abated after his tragic end, it also describes his level of intensity, his level of workmanship, as well as his presence. Those were the elements that made Bruce Lee a household name, and nowhere are these elements more epitomized than during Fist of Fury's most infamous fight scene. I haven't discussed it before, and frankly, that is a crime.
我是精武门最窝囊的徒弟。我想试试日本拳头的味道。
The scene begins with a certain level of anticipation, a level of suspense, as the assistant slowly walks over to confront Bruce, and the gentleman is rather animated, pointing his finger at Bruce while Bruce Lee looks down upon him and does not move. It is much like the bomb waiting to explode. We know that the explosion is coming, we just do not know when, and we do not know how it will explode until it explodes. And this suspense becomes characteristic of the rest of the fight scene, as it becomes a masterclass in setup and payoff. The second assistant gets up to confront Bruce, there is a slight moment of suspense. Setup, payoff. Bruce becomes encircled by the rest of the dojo. Setup and payoff. Bruce gets nunchucks, and he then uses them. Setup and payoff becomes central to this fight scene, and it is how people stay hooked to it. There's something that needs to be said about how this fight scene changed cinema. That might be hyperbolic. What I mean is, before this fight scene, martial arts fight scenes were very much in the style of Chinese theatre. Their expression came through the movements. Fight scenes very much orchestrated themselves like a dance, like ballet, and oftentimes not realistic. But that was because the fight scenes told a story of emotional storytelling. But that's because Chinese theatre was about expressionism, about emotional storytelling, about storytelling through the movement, much like ballet. Whereas Bruce Lee does something very different. The movements are deliberate, they're explosive, they're powerful, and they have meaning. He also does something very different by expressing emotion not through the body, but through the face. Now, anyone who knows film, or theatre, or television, knows that the face, when it comes to acting, is the most powerful toolbox one can use. I'm not going to say that Bruce Lee was a pioneer in using the face to convey a story through a martial arts fight scene. I'm going to say he was the first to do it, but I will say he was the most well seen to do it. And that's why he changed the game. And if the face is a toolbox in acting, then the eyes are a specialist tool. The eyes are the windows to the soul, and the eyes can tell you a whole lot about a person. If they're staring intensely forward, they tell a focus, of intensity, of singular drive. Whereas if someone is looking around nonchalantly, looking around, they're probably not very interested, or probably easily distracted. The crux of this fight scene, and the crux of this film, is predicated on injustice, on the cultural rivalry that existed, and to a certain extent still exists, between the Chinese and the Japanese. Epitomized by the symbol of the the sick men of Asia sign, when Bruce's character's master dies, as a sort of taunt, or an insult. And the film follows as Bruce's one-man mission to right that justice. But one could argue, is it a quest for justice, or is it a quest for vengeance? A quest which ends with, certainly by all accounts, him completing his mission. But he is gunned down by the police. In a certain way, it epitomizes Bruce's own journey. His one-man mission to work himself to the bone in order to reach the top, in order to reach his goal. But that goal ultimately killed him. Because he did become a household name. He did become world famous for his abilities. But it also meant his end. And the conflict between the Chinese and the Japanese, expressed in this film and seen still in real life, can't help but feel that same flair of injustice when I look at the world today. When I see on the news the latest attack, the latest death of a young person within my home country. When I see something as simple as an honesty box being abused and being targeted. Trust being abused and vandalized. When I see leeches, and I see criminals and hypocrites use the good morals of a sovereignty, of a people, and turn it into a weapon, I can't help but sympathise with the same want for vengeance that Bruce's character feels in this film. But it is in the ending that we see a lesson. One person cannot take on that role of justice bringer, justice, vengeance bringer. One man cannot take that on alone. Maybe in fiction they could, but not in the real world. There are real problems that we are currently facing. Problems of injustice. Films like Fist of Fury show how maybe one man can make a small difference, but that it will be their undoing. But in reality, it is the work of a nation, a work of a community, of people, under God, that will make the real difference. Like and subscribe if you made it to the end of the video, and next up will be a video I hope is to your liking. I'll see you next time.